Jai Hind everyone. I repeat again, Jai Hind. Remember, that's the best startup that ever existed. To acknowledge Jai Hind, we're in this fantastic country of India and here in Kerala.
So, I'm a homegrown boy from Nemmara in Palakkad. So in one way, you can call me also as a startup. Because I was asking the organizers, why would somebody like me come among the midst of all of you and talk here today? And then I realized maybe the theme that I should select is developing an astronaut mindset. Because that's the mindset which actually is required in a startup ecosystem. If you ask me what it is a mixture of art and science. The reason that you all are leaders out here is not just that you adopted technology and science, you adopted art. And that unique combination is the core of having and developing an astronaut mindset, which I will try and maybe prove to you as my thesis out here. It's neither one or the other, it's a healthy combination of both. Who's an astronaut? When I say an astronaut, it's not me. I represent this jacket and this body which is here. It's all of you out there, and especially people who are willing to take the risk, whether it's financial risk, actual risk in space, it's the same. That's me who, and it was in Vikram Sarabhai Space Center, not too far away from here, that the Honorable Prime Minister put the first astronaut wing on my chest. I'm still wearing it out here. And hopefully it is the first of the astronaut corps which we have, because when my colleague Shuks went to space from US and when Rakesh Sharma ji went from Moscow, they did not go from an Indian space rocket. So to go and qualify as a Gaganyaatri, a Gagannaut, we need to go in our spaceship, in our own rocket, and prove orbital capability. So in 2027, when the Gaganyaan mission reaches its culmination, we'll be the only fourth country in the world after erstwhile USSR, now Russia, USA, and China to send its own astronaut using its own technology, own spaceports, Sriharikota, own rocket. I'll tell you after some time why this is a monumental occasion. So who's an astronaut? So before that, you should know what people
like me are selected for. So that's me. I am still a fighter pilot with the Indian Air Force. Been flying for the last 27 years. So the initial lot of people who are selected for the astronaut program has to be a fighter pilot. Whether it's
Yuri Gagarin, whether it's Neil Armstrong, because we are used to handling very fast-moving, high-technology machines and take actions in them when things go wrong. But I'm not just a fighter pilot, I'm also a test pilot. Test pilot does not mean I'm giving a lot of exams. A test pilot means that every year in Bangalore, there's a test pilot school where through deep selection,
a lot of exams, they select 4 to 5 people to undergo a rigorous 1-year course. So people like me sit with the scientists, engineers, companies like you and see what we need to integrate into new fighter aircraft, new weapons, new radars, or new avionics, anything to do with flying, and especially fighter aircraft, because fighter is at the cutting edge of technology in Air Force. When we do that, after doing everything on the ground with our team, people like me take it up to sky and make sure that the technology, whether it's the engine, whether it's the wing, whether it's the avionics, is tested to its entire regime. So we do the actual testing of that. And why is it important for the space program? Because whether it's Neil Armstrong or any of the other people who did it, initial people like us are required to be in an unproven technology. The Gaganyaan capsule has never flown before. The people like me are going to be in it for the first time. So if it's a part of the ground, we can stop it and we can ask for repair. But if you're going to go to orbit and you can't de-orbit back, you get stuck there forever. Unless people like me are available in real time to maybe troubleshoot the situation. So that's the capsule and that's the LVM-3. So I always tell people, you're here, you would have come through the airport of Trivandrum.
You may think it's God's own country, which I totally agree. But there is one more very critical thing. This is ground zero for the Indian space program. This is actually Rocket City. I don't know how many of you have gone to Vikram Sarabhai Space Center, and I would encourage the Kerala government also to, in Trivandrum Airport, put a lot of rockets. Because if one place qualifies in the whole of India to be the Rocket City, it is Trivandrum. Just not too far away from here, Vikram Sarabhai Space Center. It's a fantastic facility, and all these things are being built over there with a lot of innovation. So the entire ecosystem builds up, because wherever there's a space park, all ancillary industries come up. What else am I? I'm also a rocket scientist. So yes, people like me don't just wear cool jackets and look cool, like, that's a general perception when you see Top Gun. But we also have to do a lot of studies and cutting edge research. So that's me in Indian Institute of Science in the hypersonic wind tunnel to make sure we do so. And that's the inflatable aerodynamic decelerator, which most probably will be flying soon. It's a re-entry vehicle and with a certain amount of heat shield. So we do all this to make sure that we are part of the same ecosystem that you all are also part of, high-end technology. But we are talking here about astronaut mindset. What does it mean to have an astronaut mindset? And remember, I'm not telling astronaut mindset, meaning only astronauts like me can do it. You all are that. That's the theme of today's talk. What does it mean to be an astronaut mindset? Does it mean to take risks by stepping outside your comfort zone? Like over here, this is the decompression chamber in San Antonio in Texas, where we reduce the pressure, the oxygen, and make sure how we react and see what are the reactions, not only of us, but also of our colleagues. This is me inside the centrifuge, all kitted up, going to 4 to 5 acceleration forces, and that's how I will look, a 90-year-old with the blood pooling down my face. And when we are doing this, we are supposed to be taking all kinds of action. And there are people like you who construct all this to make sure people like me are alive. Does it involve sitting in a spacesuit and inside crammed up areas? So that's the Soyuz spaceship, where we do a lot of actions and test out new products which come and which are designed by people like you. That's the biggest centrifuge in Moscow Star City, Yuri Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center, where you are literally put into a washing machine and it is spun at very high revolutions. And when you're there, you're supposed to take a joystick and fly back the spacecraft when they give you emergencies. So are you also making sure that in your own comfort zone, you step outside your comfort zone and always arming yourself to do things like this? So very soon I'll be going next week to continue my flying practice also for a week. So that's the fighter cockpit of a Sukhoi 30 and me doing air-to-air refueling. So the fighter mindset, in an astronaut mindset, is to make sure you're constantly honing your skills and upgrading them. And here, you're actually going and refueling from another fighter aircraft at around 5 kilometers altitude at 600 kilometers per hour. This is the easy part. We do it also at night and while entering thunderstorms, because when we prepare for the serious business of going to war, we need to give surprise to the enemy, and maybe flying very low over the sea, dark night, in between the valleys of Kashmir, deserts of Rajasthan. So all these go into preparing the first astronaut, because this is the pool of people who have come to the Gaganyaan first missions, because we are already honed through deep selection and continuous training to take such kind of risk. That's me and my colleague Shuks and the others. When we did our parabolic training in the IL-76 in Moscow, we learned to do how to get into microgravity, get inside and outside a suit, how to eat in microgravity, how to balance ourselves. Everything gets complicated by the absence of G. So that's, many people go to Delhi to get a free dose of carbon dioxide. That's me being pumped with carbon dioxide in Johnson Space Center in NASA, Houston, because they had to see what is my carbon dioxide markers. So what else does it mean to be an astronaut? It means to be a guinea pig. All your products also, you all end up being the first users of your product, being the guinea pigs. But you can't get a bigger guinea pig than this. And you should be willing to take those risks, because the people who come after you depend on you doing those experiments correctly. And over here, I have to give them the markers that how am I feeling when the carbon dioxide comes. Because why? When you're in space, things we took for granted. When I'm breathing outside, right now we take 1G for granted, Mother Earth for granted. The carbon dioxide and oxygen, because of the difference in the weight component, they normally have a ventilation. But in space, carbon dioxide will remain right in front of me unless I have a proper ventilation. And when I go to sleep, and if I don't have good ventilation, my colleague will come in the morning and find out that I have drowned in my own carbon dioxide in sleep. So they have to see the markers and see that, okay, is he undergoing carbon dioxide poisoning? Is my colleague undergoing carbon dioxide poisoning? What else does it mean to have an astronaut mindset? It means doing things like this. Making sure that your disorientation does not kick in by having all the correct vestibular organs inside you. Putting VR goggles, getting into platforms like that in which you are, suddenly it shifts to 3 dimensions and your entire things are monitored by having all kinds of electrodes on your body to see whether you are able to cope up. What else does it involve? It involves being a chef, because when you go to space, you should be able to select that really good food, right? They say the army marches on its stomach, but the spaceman floats on their stomach. We should have that right texture. We should have the right taste. We should have the flavors of where we eat. It cannot be in pellet form, because then it psychologically affects you. And remember things we took for granted here. 1G, when you eat, those grains of the biscuit fall down. In space, those grains will go to that very costly circuit on that board and cause a total short circuit, and then you're sitting in darkness inside your space capsule. That's how gravity helps you there. In space, it's not there. What else does it involve? So you are a chef. You selected the food that you want to eat. You're supposed to cook it also. And cooking in space is also difficult. Remember, water floats. And most of the food that you take are dehydrated food. You're supposed to pour water into it. We've got really expensive equipment just to make sure water comes out in the right temperature. Things we took for granted here. What else does it involve to have an astronaut mindset? It also involves being a corporate leader like any of you, sitting for the design review meetings to see how the entire launch schedule is coming up, which are the different components which needs to be sourced in from the different vendors, because are we missing something for a particular scientific experiment? Is the propellant in time? Are the entire launch schedule people doing their things? Is a particular component which is very crucial for that particular mission being sourced? And for the initial missions, is the rocket being tested? Is it human certified? Is the capsule human certified? Are all the equipment and electronics made by people like you space qualified? Because once you go to space, it becomes very expensive to fly anything else back, and it's a matter of life and death. One good thing also, like here, the design review in USA before the Axim mission took place for my colleague, we also decide the entire choreography of how the event will take place, where the cameras will be, who all will be looking, what's the kind of dress you wear. Like you can see over here, we choose which overalls to wear, me and my colleague Shuks. What are the photos we will release to the public? Because finally the space program ignites the imagination of an entire nation. We all remember when Rakesh Sharma sir went to space, my colleague went to space, and then those children out there get motivated to do the next thing, not just in STEM but also in art. Remember, the theme of my talk is that it's not just science, it is art plus science, which is an astronaut state of mind. Choosing the right frames, taking the right photographs so that we have the right outreach. Testing the right equipment. This is in NASA, with all the vendors come with their right equipment, and we make sure here, because we're in the very serious business of losing your life, so this is the mask which will protect you in case of an ammonia leak in International Space Station and in case of fire. So we make sure we sit with the vendors, we know exactly what is going on, which are the components, we have a say in all that and saying, no, this is not a good product for us, and as an astronaut, you have the final say. What else does it involve? It also involves supposedly unglamorous tasks like repairing a door. This is repairing the International Space Station door. So having an astronaut mindset also means having the mindset of doing all kinds of jobs. But when you're doing that job, it's also important to choose the right kind of tools. Here we are being training of choosing the right tool, maybe giving the right tools, feedback and all. Because remember, if the right torque is not applied and a tool breaks when you're in microgravity, you will have an entire $400 million space mission to get that one screwdriver onto station. That's how important. So I always say wherever I go that the next $1 million or $1 billion company idea is to make your 3D printable tool machine in space, because that is something which every space nation will require in the future, whether you're going to Moon, Mars, low Earth or orbit, because you need those tools in time, and you need something which will not involve something costly like replenishing it from ground. What else? Those are the food packets. That's the camera and other equipment. So you can see out here, that's the space vehicle mock-up facility in Johnson Space Center. What does it involve to be an astronaut? It involves handling all kinds of technical equipment in real fast time. So the vendors and the agencies get all these technical equipments, and you should be able to, in double quick time, be able to adopt it and integrate it into your space mission. You can see on the right, that's an interesting, story which I like to say. So those are the electric and electronic bricks to step down the voltage which is generated by the solar panels of the International Space Station. From 110 volts DC to 28 volts DC, then convert to AC. So you have all these inverters and converters. The interesting story out here is that the International Space Station has got two components. The US component, in which Japan, Canada, and the Europeans are there, and we got the Russian segment of the International Space Station, and they all eat together in a common node, which is called the node 1. The Russians use 28 volt DC and the Americans use 110 volts DC. When I did the course in Russia, the Russians told me all reasons why the Americans are fools for using 110 volts, and they're just waiting to get electrocuted. And when I did the course for 1.5 years with the Americans, they told me the Russians are biggest idiots for using 28 volt DCs. What wastage? And see, we are such great people using 110 volts. They're both using different philosophies, still totally working, using each other's technology and philosophies. And since 2000, this International Space Station is floating. Why I'm telling you this, never be stratified by some thought process because they say you have to do it like this only. This is an example that it need not be like that. Having an astronaut state of mind also means being a perpetual student. So that's me with my instructor 20 years younger to me. We have to always upgrade and make sure that we are ahead of the technology. So lot of practice sessions in which so it's a room like this.
You will have close to 200 people monitoring me and seeing each and every action. Each one is on their computer console and seeing all the actions that I'm doing. So that's me. I've also been trained on the other side. That's a capsule communication, and that's a famous Johnson Space Center's mission control center. You know the movie Apollo and all, Houston, we have a problem. So that, and there is the flight director, and I even underwent training of this because we are supposed to know how to control the astronauts on the other side. So at the other side is the entire screen like this, in which the astronauts are doing their actual missions in the International Space Station, and we are controlling them. It also involves being a low-grade surgeon but a high-level medic, because you're supposed to save your colleagues. So you need to know the small sutures, how to do injection, how to do CPR, where you're floating, how to give all kinds of emergency medical, because we can't fly in a doctor just like that. And we may not have communication at all times when our own Gaganyaatri station is floating. So all this kind of thing, and we'll be very serious about it. And you can see me and my colleague, and you see how many instructors are all around, checking each and everything. It also means going on with your entire astronaut team into the wilderness. But this time, like this is in Baja Peninsula in Mexico, we went for kayaking. It's a planned activity in which we go into and do a island hopping from one island to another, and we are supposed to survive. Because the true method of a human being comes when his back is against the wall, and the true behavior. We just don't canoe, we are supposed to assess each other also. So we have, that's Peggy Wilson on the right. She has got more hours doing Indian than even Sunita Williams. And she's 65 years old, and she was a commander of the mission. And you can see there, she in that age also is preparing her own boat while we cast off into the sea. It also involves, like I said, psychologically assessing each other. In your own teams, you have to be ruthless. If somebody is a straggler, we get the entire team down. But it doesn't mean we put anyone out, we build him up, because we are already there as a team. We assess each other and other people assess us. Nobody is fake, they are all genuine because they are serious issues of going to space together. It also involves adopting new skills. You may ask why do you need to swim or go canoeing to go to space. It's not that. You need to test certain things in space, we are equivalent environments on Earth. And if you say, no, I won't learn kayaking or I won't go out alone into the sea, it just doesn't work that way. So that's me and my colleagues in Moscow. So the capsule, the Gaganyaan capsule also will land on the Bay of Bengal, but it might develop a leak after landing, because remember it's coming at 8 kilometers per second and re-entering on Earth's atmosphere. After landing, in case there's a leak, it will start descending very fast into the Bay of Bengal. So immediately you're supposed to jump and wait for rescue to come over a period of maximum maybe 2 days and survive in the sea. And in case you land over the land, which the Gaganyaan is not optimized for, but the Soyuz is supposed to survive for 2 days in the desert. And I say, Hitler and Napoleon couldn't survive the Russian winter, but we did. We went there and survived 2 days in the Russian winter, making your own food, cutting your own dogs. That's somewhere in the deep, forest of Moscow, where we had survived simulating situation in which the capsule has crash landed somewhere in this snow. What else does it involve? It involves going into the nitty-gritties of everything. So this is a facility in San Antonio in Texas. It's called a tropical helicopter underwater extraction facility.
When I tell you this, I want you to think about all the ecosystem. What has this got to do with space? This is a private company. So in US, almost all the things are outsourced to private companies. So what do these guys do? They make sure for offshore rigs and for people like us, because once you land over the sea, Crew Dragon has to be pulled on board the ship, and from there you have to be taken a helicopter to the mainland. But imagine doing an entire mission in space and you crash land after coming back on ground and you die, which is a very big possibility. So you're told how to survive that crash landing of a helicopter. And that is a helicopter capsule. We are taken to a big swimming pool and the entire thing is turned down and you're supposed to come out and save yourself and your coastmates. Why is it important? Because this entire thing is done by private players in the US. Everything is done by private players because the entire ecosystem is around NASA. Whether it's Johnson Space Center or whether it's Kennedy Space Center, they have built an entire ecosystem. That's me also learning as part of an astronaut. What does it involve? Being a good scientist. Because all the experiments in space have to be done by us. There is nobody else who will come and do it for you, and you're supposed to be in microgravity that time. You may not be able to get in touch. If you got your experiments, you know everything about it, but I should know it as good as you. And I should have the mental capacity to absorb it as soon as possible. That's the Axiom spacesuit, which is going to be, NASA has given the contract to Axiom Space. They won the contract. Axiom is a private space company. They won the contract for that. I was lucky enough to try it out in the facility in Houston. So why this is important is that all of us out here, we quote America for their standards or Europe for their standards. And we say also out here, oh, it's past American military standards, it's past mil standards, AGARD value and all. I'm sure you all be looking into it while qualifying all your electronic equipment. One thing which is generally done is whether most of the equipment, whether it's in the car and all, it passes 95 percentile of human population. I know people who are interacting with human-centric products will understand that. 95 percentile means most of the population, 95 percentile, and we are not looking for very short people, very tall people or very obese people. Here, when they released the specs for the US industry, NASA said, we are changing the entire format. And they said, for the moon mission and Artemis program, it's called the Artemis program for Americans to go back to moon and Mars. They said it is 3% female population. 3% female population is the specs they released to the industry. And then they came out with this. Each portion can be removed and reconfigured so that 3% female population can wear this suit. And if suppose I come there and there's some other tall person, I can quickly reconfigure the suit and suit it for me. But there's another catch here also. They didn't just say it for physical standards, they said it for endurance standards of a female also. So you could have the same stature of a man and a female, a woman, but a female, because of her cardiovascular system, may not be able to do. So they did all those prototypes and said the equipment you use, whether a lady on top of moon will be able to do that. So they make sure that the qualification they released to the industry was the qualification requirement of 3% female population by size and endurance. Now since they have done, we will say, okay, since they have done it, we are doing it. My request to all of you is make your own standards. We are India. We are not a Suriname, Fiji, or a Bangladesh or a Pakistan. Sitting out here in, most of the shirts that we wear right now, if you open the tag behind, it's written US size, UK size, or European Union size. We are India. We are making those equipment right, or those shirts right here in Ludhiana or Tirupur or anywhere else. We care for their thing, and we have got such a population out here. We don't care about our own populational sentiments out here. You open your shoe size and you see what is the thing written out here, you'll find US, UK or EU standards. You take the washing instructions in your shirt right now. Everything made here. I can understand if a Fiji or a Suriname or some other Saudi Arabia are saying, okay, we don't manufacture all this, so we have to depend on those people. But you open your right now, the washing tag on your shirt. You will find it in English, you will find it in Arabic, you will find it in French, Spanish, Vietnamese, everything. Not in one Indian language. While even the language Malayalam is spoken by more than maybe a European country. Who's going to, they will not tell us to do it, we should do it. This is where I'm saying define your own standards, and you all can do that. So there, having an astronaut mindset also means having fun when you do. So we are learning our experiments by having fun. That's with my Polish and my Hungarian colleagues also. And below me, that's doing the space toilet training. Very important to go to toilet in space. We also do payload training in Huntsville. So the people who operate the payloads, scientific experiments which are going to be sent by you to space, you all as vendors are sitting. So when I went to Japanese Space Agency, JAXA or European Space Agency, whether it's Mitsubishi, whether it is, all the other private players, they are all sitting on one side in the Mission Control Center. And all their robotics and all their food products, anything sent by the vendors, they are also involved. And they are there in the payload control center. And when we go for training there, we are also doing a lot of socializing with them to know all of them by one, the first name basis. Very important, because when you're floating in space, and I should know, hey Ajay, hey Smita, something like that, and make sure that billion-dollar experiment goes off well. A lot of emphasis give, so that's us familiarizing ourselves with the controllers in Huntsville, Alabama. What else does it involve? It also means not just looking good in front of the camera, but also knowing how to operate all the cameras on board the ISS and for us the Gaganyaan in the future. Because to take that $1 million shot, not just with video cameras, but also with still cameras. A lot of training goes into this and using the latest equipment. What else does it involve? Finally, people like me and you are the same. There's no difference. Pull down to bare basics. That's inside the Crew Dragon in California. That's how it looks. And finally, it's also important, so this is my colleague when he landed back from International Space Station. I don't know how many of you know that old man who was there. It's very important in this slide. He's Ravish Malhotra. He was the standby to Rakesh Sharma sir in 1984. He's 90 years old. He came all the way to Houston. And what you see there in packet was the overall he wore when he was training in 1984 in Moscow. So this is the kind of passion that is there. Okay, imagine he came there, 90-year-old guy, who had his hip replacement surgery just a month before in India, and he flew there so as to cheer us. This is the kind of enthusiasm that is there. What else is there? This is with all my other colleagues, all astronauts gone multiple times to space from Japan, from European countries, and on the top right you can see from Russia also. All of them are like one big party training together. So even at the heights right now of the Russia-Ukraine problem, the Russians are still training with the Americans in America. So do not believe everything you read there that we are buying oil and America is not doing anything with the Russians. They're actively collaborating with Russians even now. This is a beautiful place I visited. This is the SpaceX facility, and that is the Falcon 9 which comes back and lands. It's a beautiful sight to see it right in front of you when the entire rocket comes back and lands. In Hawthorne, California, when you go, you'll find the entire industry which is based on SpaceX right in front of you. And that one, my friends, is the best kept secret of Elon Musk. We were very lucky to go there and being given a private tour just before we came back after the mission. That is Boca Chica, Star City in southern Texas near the border with Mexico. It's a massive facility of Elon Musk, and day and night the engineers and scientists are working. What you see there behind me is Starship. This is the spaceship which is going to take humanity back to moon and then future to Mars. And you know what's the best part? I went inside, people are working, different environment. So here is a restaurant. Imagine the restaurant is here and all the workshops are just there. Around 20 to 30% of the people working there were all Indians, Indian Americans. If not us, who else can do this? But we go there and slave. Sometimes I say it's good that H1B and other problems have been put by Trump, it's so that we can do the things out here. Again, I'm saying we are not a Suriname or a Fiji Island or a Pakistan or a Bangladesh or any other, nothing against any of those countries. But they should be actually thinking, what's wrong with us? We are actually the people building other people's space missions. But you know what is missing? And I'll tell you. And you all are the examples that you are the success stories, but the rest of Indians are not getting it. That the reason why 10,000 Britishers ruled over the entire country, and why we still now are CEO of Google, CEO of Microsoft, but then we need somebody else, a foreigner, to come and do the multidisciplinary approach and make sure I'll get this person together, this person, oh, he's got the algorithm, oh, this guy has got the, he draws well, let me join this together and make Instagram, and I own the company. This is why I'm saying, you have something in you which you yourself don't realize. You're not just scientists, you're artists. That's what is required. You put a multidisciplinary approach without you yourself realizing it. And one thing which I will encourage all of you, me being a military person, and I got my degrees in defense and political science also, and I'm also into technology. I encourage all of you to know geopolitics, know economics, know communication, because that is what sets you from being a billion-dollar company and helping your colleagues. Multidisciplinary approach, and encourage it for all the people in your organization to have that confidence. You should tell them, what are you doing? You're a scientist, you're a technician, let's do this Udemy course or TEDx course or whatever to make sure your communication skills, your geopolitics, your international relations, everything improves. And trust me, you do not know how it's going to help you. What else? This is, we were, intuitive machines. Why I'm telling you to bring your conference back again. Intuitive Machine tried to land the moon rover few months back and they failed. I don't know how many of you know that. They tried to put their rover, it's an American company. So all those people, all with $1 million salaries, all scientists and engineers and entrepreneurs, they couldn't land on the moon. And you know why? Intuitive company and Axiom, through which we went, they have the same owner. So all those rocket scientists could not do what we in ISRO using your support have done. This is our power. We are not a Suriname, we are not a Fiji Island, we are not Pakistan, we are not Saudi Arabia, we are not Europe, we are India. Nobody else needs to tell us what to do. This is what is the ask from all of you. A human being should be able to change a diaper, plan an invasion, butcher a hawk, con a ship, design a building, write a sonnet, balance accounts, build a wall, set a bone, comfort the dying, take orders, give orders, cooperate, act alone, solve equations, analyze a new problem, pitch menu, program a computer, cook a tasty meal, fight efficiently, die gallantly. Specialization is for insects. All of you, unconsciously or subconsciously, the reason you all are successful as startups is you have already incorporated, but you have not institutionalized it. And the Americans and the rest of the people don't want you to know this because they want to come and say, oh, great, you have done this, oh, you have done this. Do one thing, I'll own the company. And that is where our problem is. I try to tell you what an astronaut is, who an astronaut is. But I'll try to speak your language maybe. Who is an astronaut? This is the NASA, the first, one very good thing. I hope all of you know, NASA has been the pioneer of releasing all the standards. Most of the standards which you use for qualifying are released by NASA. Your startups, technology, all those standards and all were released in NASA in 1970s because they wanted private vendors to supply them. So they are the ones who, most of the standards you see are NASA standards. And I have been there and see how they work. So in their handbook, they say this about systems engineering. So systems engineering is like a jack of all trades. You can use this as a reason why I'm using this terminology. And what does he say a systems engineer is? He says system engineering is an art and science. And what is the next thing in bold I've written? Systems engineering is a holistic, integrative principle. And the last one, to produce a coherent whole that is not dominated by a perspective of a single discipline. So who is that systems engineer? Because we think very loosely in your own establishments when you say one person who's going to tie up all this. Generally, it's the owner of the company in your case because subconsciously he already knows all that and that's why he is he. You would have realized when Wembu spoke, he knew a lot of geopolitics. Without his own realizing it, maybe that's the reason of his success. What is written? Optimize the overall design and not favor one system or subsystem at the expense of other. And what is he talking about as systems engineer? The art is in knowing when and where to probe. You know what is art? We think of art as art college and science college. I'll tell you what is art. Art is the reason that the taste of your mother's sambar cannot be put into an algorithm. You can write an entire PhD thesis on the smell of rose and a person who has never smelled rose will still not know what a rose is by reading that book or what the taste of chocolate is by reading a thesis on the PhD of chocolate. It is the experiential feel. It is you who makes that art possible without you knowing it, having that conscious experience, and that is what this great land gives us. I'll tell you why. The challenge is what? Safe and balanced design in the face of opposing interests. Again, it's none of my thought. It is what NASA has put as guidelines for systems engineers. So what is the system? I told you about the engineer, I'm talking about the system now. It is the hardware, software, equipment, facilities, personnel, processes and procedures. When you see a space capsule, do you see the astronaut inside? Do you see where the capsule is getting over and where his spacesuit is coming and where his body, Atma or whatever it is? Where does one stop and the other start? Where do you know where the astronaut is and where his machine is? You all are in the very serious business of making machines and equipments and like robotics and all. But where does the human being stop and the machine start? Are you making something just for machines? No, you're making for humans. And like the speakers before me said, that's why machines can never be artificially conscious. They'll only be artificially intelligent. Art will never come to them. They will never know. There can never be an algorithm to thought. You are all hearing my words right now. Input is one. System is getting one input. But all your brains are having separate thoughts. That is the art, an algorithm which can never be put into equation. And that's what you bring to the table. So not who is an astronaut, what is an astronaut? Is he the system, the machine? And if so, how do you automate the astronaut? So my thing in any of your things which you're doing in startup is that it has to be driven by the human in the loop who has the maximum to lose. If you send me, I'll die, right, maximum. Or if I am not able to deorbit, I'll keep orbiting forever like the moon. And you won't be able to get me back till I die of hunger. So who's the one who's got maximum to lose? As a fighter pilot, as a test pilot, the machine is there, but when the machine crashes, the pilot dies. If Chandrayaan had a human being inside, when Chandrayaan 2 failed, imagine the implication, the entire space program will get sidelined, and maybe your adversaries want that to happen. So when you make machines in your own startups, what should be the driving it should be safety of the machine-man interface. Think the example of a car. When Mahindra or Tata is making a car, now you see all the cars are coming in such a way that the man-machine interface is there. What's the first thing they look? The person should not die while driving the car. Secondly, procedure. Okay, it's supposed to be for 4-wheel drive, let's have a 4-wheel drive. Third, most important, and this we all fail. By we all, please don't take it as a personal thing. You know what? Our standards. Accuracy means doing that one final touch in which we do not end up as CEO of a company but owning the company, not for us but for outside. We should be setting the standards. German people are here, they still make all their precision equipment. I went to many of the companies out there. We are still not making ball bearings. You know why? Because ball bearings, they say we do not have enough scalability. So who's going to be our clients? So my question is, how is Germany making those balls? Who are their clients? And this is where public-private partnership through government support is very important. The Kerala government has told they're going to handhold all of you. But you have to make sure those ecosystems exist, and you're supposed to make sure if there is a problem in any of that, you have to highlight it. So I hope I've been able to convince you to have an astronaut state of mind is the most logical state of mind. Again, that line is taken not from mine, but from the NASA handbook. He said to be a systems engineering thought process, you should think logically. What I have put on the right is my thought. It means science and art, right and left, maths and poetry. I encourage all of you to pick up your history book, your geography book, your any other book, commerce book, finance you guys will be doing. Because again, see what you heard from today, even I don't know whether Sridhar Vembu himself realized, all great leaders know our multidisciplinary approach without they themselves knowing it. And that is one thing which is lacking in us, but which foreigners, because naturally it is there in their education program, they do it. The most important thing in life, it's not who is an astronaut, what is an astronaut. Why should you be an astronaut or an astronaut state of mind? It is so that you know how to go to the toilet. I'm not joking. The biggest problem in space is to go to toilet. Mother Earth, gravity, and 1G going to the bathroom. Do you even think twice? Many of you would have gone many times to a bathroom today. But imagine doing it while floating. And you know, that is actually the billion-dollar idea. You all are here in startups and a startup ecosystem. Nobody talks about this. We talk about, I've been to many, I was last week in IIT Kharagpur, before that IIT Mumbai, part of Indian Space Association, many other, a lot of people doing a lot of stuff. nobody's making human-centric products for space. And the Westerners, NASA, Europe, many other people don't want you to think like that. You all are making satellite components, semiconductors and everything. You know what you're not making? You're not making a toilet. To tell you, that is a $1 billion idea. You know how many space toilets are there in the world? One. And Russia owns it. This is the space toilet training in International Space Station in Houston on a Russian toilet system. Even the Americans have not been able. They released this problem statement to their entire country, America. They put one, I think Lockheed Martin or Northrop Grumman with a consortium of many people, they came up with a space toilet. And best kept secret, it's not working. They are deorbiting it again because it's just a waste of space in International Space Station. The Russian system is working. There's just one space toilet in the entire world. You guys should be at the next space. And I'm telling you, imagine the amount of money involved if nothing else is a motivation at least. So why do we go to space? So we remember the things which we take for granted. Why do we go to space? So we shall not cease from exploration. The end of all exploring will be to arrive where we started. Know the place for the first time. So that we know that when we are breathing out carbon dioxide right now, 1g gravity is pushing it down. But in space, if I don't remove it, I will drown in that carbon dioxide. Mother Earth's contribution to us is like that. Don't take things for granted. And I'll end with one final thing, which is very geopolitical and very important. I know I'm taking slightly more time, but it's important. Why should an Indian go to space? Most of you will be thinking about what a waste of money, right? I'll tell you why. Sputnik moment. Sputnik moment is actually a term. You can Google it. On 4th October 1957, USSR launched the first satellite. For USSR and the rest of the world, who were his friends, it announced the arrival of space age and satellite technology. For USA, NATO, and all his allies, it signaled the arrival of precision delivery of nuclear weapons through orbit. And hence was born DARPA. You know what is DARPA? Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, the biggest innovative agency in the world even as of today. They are the ones who made DARPANet, which became internet. They are the ones who made GPS, which is still used by all of us for water form. All cutting edge, because they said never again we shall have technological surprise. And Ike Eisenhower, who was the president, made DARPA. That was the Sputnik moment. Why am I talking about Sputnik moment? 2027, we are going to launch the first Indian on an Indian spaceship, on an Indian capsule from Indian shores. It's going to signal the Gaganyaan moment. But wait, you might think, what does that mean? Is it terminology? No. I'll tell you what is Gaganyaan moment, and you all, and that's why I said we are India. Understand that we ourselves forget we are India. We are not any other country. I'll fast forward you to a vision. 2040, the first Indian has landed on the moon, which is our target. In between, we'll be launching Gaganyaan in 2027 with the Bharatiya Antariksh Station, which is our own version of the International Space Station. And people like me will have to go up and, fix it like a Lego set between 2028 and 2035. By 2040, the first Indian will land on the moon. And when he lands, he's going to be talking. There'll be an address with whatever delay to India. And we all will be listening. There's no doubts about it, wherever we are in India, because it's a momentous occasion then. And he will thank all the leadership, the political leadership, the startup culture, everyone for getting him there. But more important, who will be listening? It's not even Indians who will be listening more. Will be the rest of the world, the global south, the Europeans, and everyone who realized, thank God, that in 2040, they'll say 2027 happened, the Gaganyaan moment. That when India went to space with a human being, he made sure that he's holding it for the rest of the world. Because we are India. We won't let the next colonization happen. We missed the nuclear high table, and hence you can see where the nuclear race that took place. We missed the UN Security Council 5 and you see where the world is right now. The rules of space is being rewritten, and you do not be under any illusion about that. When an Indian goes to space in 2027, the world cannot ignore us, because now we will be among the 5 countries who will be writing the new space laws. And unlike the other countries, and you know who those other countries are, whether it's Russia or China or USA, they all will start dividing space like the way they divided the rest of the world into colonies. We will stand there for the rest of the world, and you and I know it. You know why? Because in 2020, when the rest of the world were dying with COVID, India was the only country, and this shows the mettle of a country when your back is against a wall, who gave COVID vaccines even before our entire population was vaccinated, and not in one citizen. That shows our culture protested against it, because he said, yeah, that's the most natural thing to do. What do you think Americans did? And you know it. Nothing they did. That's why, you know why an Indian should go to space? Because not for us, the rest of the world wants us to go to space. We should go to space for the rest of the world, and you are the ambassadors who will tell everyone, we will make sure our Indians go to space. And guess what? The party is going to be in you all being part of the ecosystem, because all those people will want to come and fly with us to space. And once they come here, the ecosystem with all the industries is going to be built by you. So this is the reason that the Gaganyaan movement is going to be a very momentous occasion. When you see this, do you see maths or do you see poetry? Do you see science or do you see art? An astronaut mindset means you see both. Being a leader in a startup in India in this age and time towards Viksit Bharat means you see both. Make sure you give a human touch to that robot, and that is what you need to understand from today. Make sure you arm up technologically and also geopolitically with all art. And speaking your language, TRL, technology readiness level, and manufacturing readiness level, art and science. Think of it in that dual way. This is art and science. Technology readiness level is your art or your science, and the other one is the art. Both have to go together. Having a great idea is not good enough if you do not match up with manufacturing level. And by the way, an interesting trivia, TRL was coined by and made by NASA in the 1970s. This time when our space ecosystem is going up, we shall be the drivers to make our own new standards, so the rest of the world plugs up into our own definitions. What are the problems that is seen? And all of you already know, lack of storytelling. Tell your stories. Fire the imagination of our youngsters. Capital stacking, once you tell the stories that will come. Regulatory guidelines, it's all there. It's one big party out here. We are all, in the same thing. And from VC's point of view, I have a very big input for all of you who want to invest and who want to handhold companies. Aerospace, this basically was for aerospace companies. Lack of patience and lack of exit clarity. You know why we are different? India is different. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam and all. We believe in the human experience. The Indian Development Index is different. When VCs go to a company, there's an energy flow. The energy of this Parashurama Kshetra also being in Kerala. We forget that we have to do things the Indian way. And the Indian way is Sabke Saath, Sabka Vikas. So I would encourage the people who are going to any of the people of funding, don't go by the metrics set by Westerners for judging whether something needs to be funded, not funded. See the energy of the place. And I'm not talking woo-woo. This is that place of energy. Whether it's Kerala or country and all. And fund something. I say many places that you should have not just those metrics of, material metrics. You should have spiritual metrics also and say, does this company sound spiritually correct? Invest in it. Trust me, you'll never go wrong. And why? It was always there in our culture. The Ardhanareshwari, the Shiva, the Shakti, Adam and Eve, the yin and yang, art and science was always part of it. This comes naturally to us. If I have to speak this in the USA and many other places, they won't know what I'm talking about. But all of you know. We are perfectly at home, sitting here and working with the latest technology and then going to Padma Swami Kshetram and praying there, or to a mosque and praying there, or to the church and praying there. And we don't find any of this out of place. Or before any rocket launch to go to Tirupati, we can do it. And that is what you bring to the table. Art or science, that's me, the same person. I just want to tell you that if I can do it and transform my body, you guys can also do it in your own ecosystems. From an astronaut state of mind, let's all go to a Gaganyaatri state of mind. So, blackness of space, where everything comes together, light or darkness. Thank you guys. Thank you. Jai Hind.